Hello dear readers and subscribers. Figurative painting is alive and well. The 2023 recap by Artsy of the art market showed that figurative painting is still the market's favorite. However, many figurative artists are struggling to be welcomed by that market with open arms. Therefore, in this video, we're going to talk about one of the most common reasons why your figurative paintings are failing to enter the art world, and also how to fix it. Failure and success are integral parts of an artist's career, but of course it is safe to say that we prefer the latter. However, success can mean many different things here. Many artists simply enjoy creating art, whereas others want to make a living out of the thing they love the most. The CAI platform always pursues success in the highest realms of the art world, meaning that we're creating contemporary art and also art with a deeper meaning that can really stand its ground in a high-end environment. Art that is adored by art collectors and the art galleries. Art that we can find in the biggest institutions of the world. Now, when it comes to the number one reason why figurative painters are failing, one might think that I'm going to talk about finding your own voice, your personal style, your recognizable style, or perhaps about not creating art world art. However, these are topics that I have covered in other videos. Having advised over 100 people in 2023, one of the most common issues with figurative painters today is their source material. The use of source material in their creative process. The most common approach for figurative painters when they decide what to paint, even before they put a single mark on the canvas, is finding an image that is appealing to them. And what most artists do, due to the convenience of social media and the internet, is simply to look for a photographic reference material, a reference picture that they find interesting. So they browse the web, they browse Pinterest to find that specific image that they would like to paint. In short, we are looking for an alibi to paint and not really having a specific purpose or intention on what we're going to paint. Most often in this more convenient process, the meaning starts to come afterwards. However, first, it is an alibi to paint something, most often something that is rather pretty, a pretty picture. By doing so, you're not creating art, but you're creating an exercise. We find an image, an alibi to paint, to explore and improve our technique, or to find our personal voice. However, the most important thing first is the picture. Why have you selected it? What does it say? What is unique and original about it? Because the thing you need to comprehend here is that in an era that is flooded by images, we're being bombarded by images 24/7 on our television screens, on our phones, in magazines, etc., etc. All these images are very easy to consume. Fashion references, some vintage photographs. However, all these images have no conflict, no ambiguity. And even more, it is not because something works in photography that it will work in painting, especially from a contemporary painterly perspective. To create original and powerful work, it is essential not to drown in this flood of images of the 21st century. You have to break the decorum, break what is convenient and what is ubiquitous. Instead, you have to search for iconicity. Try to create something that does not exist, or revisit something in such a manner that is something entirely new. Therefore, it is important to give depth and meaning to your source material, and you have to have a real intention when selecting the source material. Let's illustrate how you can do this with some clear-cut examples by established artists, figurative painters who are masters at doing this. A great first example is, for instance, Marlene Dumas, who has this archival fever, which is quintessential to new European painting and postmodern figurative painting. It occupies exactly this flood of images. However, she opts to go for archival images that have an additional layer, an additional depth. For instance, depicting people who are kleptomanic, depicting people who are criminals, depicting people who have passed away, or family and friends in an utmost personal and intimate manner. The picture itself is no longer just a pretty picture or an alibi to paint. It has a story, it has meaning, it has weight to it. And even without being aware of the context or the specific narrative or meaning or intention behind the photograph, you can feel it when standing in front of it. Most often these pictures aren't the pretty pictures of a fancy supermodel or a beautiful portrait. Most often they are a bit more enigmatic or obscure. Another strategy that you could implement is creating a collage first, and the elements of this collage can be things that you have found on the web. However, you're creating an entire new entity with it. A great example here is Justin Mortimer, especially with his digital collages that he then transfers into a painting, and by painting them it becomes this homogeneous entity, something entirely new. It has its own identity and purpose to discover both as the painter and as the viewer, which is of course a lot more exciting. Another option is to use Photoshop to manipulate images in advance and to implement new technologies to create visual effects and spectacles that, for instance, can engage in a art historical dialogue with the medium of oil painting itself, such as Glenn Brown with his kind of impasto look in his pictures that are actually very, very smooth. So with Photoshop he created this effect, which also became his recognizable style, and created this dialogue between new technology and of course the ongoing history of oil painting. Another great example and strategy to revisit this creative process and to do something interesting with your source material is by staging your own photographs and doing something in this staging process. For instance, a terrific example is the entire set that the Belgian artist Rinus van de Velde creates before making his characteristic charcoal drawings, and also recently his works on paper and pastel and crayon. In those sets, the artist himself acts as the protagonist, as he creates these fictional biographies in which he can talk with modern masters from the past that already passed away, or go to places he has never been. Another example and great strategy that is too often forgotten is simply painting from the heart, using your imagination and using no reference material at all. It can be in fact very liberating, as many artists often feel stuck to their reference material. Sometimes this might feel intimidating, but in fact it is a lot of fun. It's the most free you can be as a figurative painter, actually. And if you're too worried or too intimidated and think that you won't get the proportions right and that it will be like rubbish, believe me, it is a lot more refreshing to see something with bad proportion but is pure imagination than someone who is meticulously replicating reality or a photograph. In fact, at this very moment, the art world loves it. It feels so fresh, so new, and it is exactly what Jerry Saltz meant with his article on the Richter resolution and the use of projectors. We want the freedom and the spontaneity back in figurative painting, and this is happening very much today. Great example is, for instance, Ben Sletsens, who has this naive pictures of landscapes, figures, beautiful idyllic landscapes that he painted from imagination, from the heart, and this naive character, this playfulness to it feels so refreshing, so contemporary. In short, there are endless opportunities here to do something with the source material before making a mark. Another example is using AI to have your first reference materials. Use it to find new ideas or create new images before painting them. It's all part of the toolbox, and it can be a lot more interesting to use, for instance, Midjourney or DALL-E than simply to go on the web and to replicate a photograph that is most likely already being painted by another painter. Therefore, I want you to break the decorum, really revisit your source material, your creative process. Use everything that's available in the toolbox, from AI to Photoshop, to creating your own pictures, to painting from the heart, to going through archival imagery and perhaps creating a collage with them. There is so much you can do, and by doing so, you can actually create something specific with true intention and true creativity from the artist, instead of being the executioner. You can be the inventor of an image. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Feel free to watch our video on the most common mistake abstract painters make and how to fix it next. Support us on Patreon, and please consider subscribing to stay posted for more contemporary art. Bye.